Sanibonani BULAWAYO. Sanibonani BULAWAYO. Thank you very much. The Minister of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture, Honorable Dr. Festival, represented by the Deputy Minister, Honorable Emily Design, allow me to write on the protocols already given. It is an honor to welcome you to the city of Bulawayo. I am Director Nuku, representing the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Honorable Judith Nube, who has other commitments. I will read her speech as given. It is an honor to welcome you to the city of Bulawayo and to the kick-off workshop on the pilot implementation of the Culture 2030 indicators for Bulawayo and Zimbabwe. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedules to be part of this historic event for both the city and the nation at large. The city of Bulawayo in July 2023 signed a memorandum of understanding with UNESCO committing towards cultural data collection and analysis, which will enable it to measure and monitor the contributions of culture towards the implementation of Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. The UNESCO Culture 2030 Indicators is a framework to measure and monitor culture's contribution to the national and local implementation of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This workshop seeks to introduce us to Culture 2030 Indicators methodology and give us guidance on data collection as well as implementation at national and local levels. In that context, the UNESCO Culture 2030 Indicators are a groundbreaking and innovative methodology that measures and monitors culture in the SDGs. The implementation of this framework is in line with the city's objectives on arts, culture and heritage, and the city's 7 keys on culture. The survey is expected to enrich the city's creative sectors. I am excited that Bulawayo was chosen for this exercise, and this is testament to the strides the city has made in the development and promotion of the arts, the creative sector, and preservation of its heritage. This will be key in also substantiating the city's status as a cultural hub and reinforces efforts that have been made towards including culture in the Sustainable Development Goals. As we gather here for the next 2 days, we will be doing a number of activities meant to prepare us for the upcoming survey. It will help the city and Zimbabwe at large to begin the process of quantification of the contribution of the cities and national's profound heritage, rich diversity and culture. There are several benefits that are anticipated to be derived after this exercise, and these include preserving the local culture and heritage, strengthening communities, commercializing of culture and art, revitalization of the creative arts sectors, and the preservation of heritage. This will help the city and the country to build and quantify cultural capital, promote preservation of local traditions, customs and culture, and building a coherent and strong narrative on culture and development that is evidence-based. Demonstrating the positive impact of culture in our society begins with data. This can only be achieved by carrying out research and working with experts in the relevant fields, Their presence today underscores this important initiative. I therefore thank UNESCO and its supporting partners on embarking on the pilot project and availing the technical support to make this exercise a success. May I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this workshop. May you feel welcome, recognized, and appreciated for being here. I anticipate your esteemed and active participation throughout the next 2 days to make it a great success. I thank you, Siabo.
I'm very happy to be here with you today for this initial thematic workshop on culture and development at the national level in the city of Bulawayo. Let me start by thanking the city for hosting this program. And as we were discussing prior to this formal fora with the Honorable Deputy Minister, the city holds not just history, it is not just a city of kings, but it is also a city of creatives, it is a city of promise, and it is a city of future. So thank you so much for having us here. I need to thank our bilateral partners also who support us. Especially I want to thank the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, or more commonly known as SIDA, for supporting this pilot of 2030 culture indicators in Zimbabwe. And of course, in saying so, I need to acknowledge again the government of Zimbabwe's commitment, because without them making this commitment at the Mondia Cult in 2022, this workshop would not have been possible. We would not have thought of the implementation of the Culture 2030 indicators. We would not be in Bulawayo. So thank you so much to the government. The issue of culture and culture's contribution to development is often an issue, in my view, and please excuse me for saying so, it's an issue of ignorance, because culture surrounds us, it's amidst us, it is in us. We are products of our culture. And that culture, that heritage is so omnipresent that its contribution to development is not always visible, not always tracked, monitored, calculated, reported. And this initiative is an effort to rectify this historical error that we as a development practitioners have carried on. So the role of culture in local development, community development, human development, in civilization building is very strong. But how do we, through which modalities we acknowledge, we appreciate, and we invest in it is very important to figure out. And this effort, the 2030 indicators, provide a basic framework by which our member states can begin the process in this direction. I think culture's contribution to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development then is a foregone conclusion. Those goals in 2030 Agenda are looking at some tangibles. But what makes those tangibles possible? What enables and what hinders comes from culture. We cannot have economic development without looking at culture's contribution. The scale of cultural economy can only be mapped if we look at what is the supplementary income source of our populations. Who are the resource provider of the hospitality sectors? Who are the resource provider of the construction industry, of the building industry? And you will find creatives in all these areas. So it is a process of acknowledging and recognizing, but I'm also equally delighted that after Burkina Faso and the city of Ouagadougou, excuse me for not being able to pronounce it clearly, as well as Morocco and the city of Essaouira, that BULAWAYO in Zimbabwe has taken the initiative to pilot it. So this is quite historical. It is the first country in Southern Africa and the third in Africa to be piloting these indicators. Congratulations to all of you. And it also means that this inspiring and this very proactive initiative that has been taken by the city of Bulawayo shows a commitment of the government of Zimbabwe to acknowledge, appreciate, and foster culture's contribution to economic development, to sustainable development, to social well-being. So it is not a mean feat, because no work around the statistics, data, and continuous monitoring of development trends can be done by any development partner, by any UN entity, including UNESCO, unless there is national ownership and national commitment. And you are showing it, we very much appreciate it. The data that you would bring together, that you will analyze and report on, will be taken to the next session of the Mondia Cult Conference, which is due to be held in Barcelona in 2025. In this regard, I would like to thank every national stakeholder, the City Council, the local experts, and my dear UNESCO colleagues who are supporting this process for your efforts. You will make a fundamental contribution to the implementation of the indicators. Most important, you will be informing decision makers, policy makers, especially those who decide how much of the national budget allocation should go where. Development partners who decide where the development aid goes, what is the national priority. And of course, you will be helping make visible the cross-cutting role of culture, which is not a small task to accomplish. We are very pleased that Government of Zimbabwe's commitment through this initiative will be advancing not just the global development frameworks like the Agenda 2030, but will also contribute to the continental agendas. AU Agenda 2063. Within Southern Africa, SADC is working towards economic diversification. Zimbabwe's contribution and initiative will also contribute to the regional direction. So this is, you can say, a beginning, a small initiative, but not a small ambition, not a small effort. And my deep appreciation, congratulations to all of you for coming together for this initiative. And thank you again to the government, represented here by Deputy Minister. Thank you so much.
Excellencies, dear experts, dear participants, dear colleagues, I'm very happy to welcome you to the launch workshop of the UNESCO Culture 2030 Indicators project. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Directorate General of International Partnership of the European Commission, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, and the Spanish International Cooperation for Development Agency for supporting UNESCO's Culture 2030 Indicators initiative and making this project a reality. I also sincerely thank the national and local authorities for their support and their willingness to implement these indicators. Supporting of our member states in the implementation of the national and local development programs through culture has always been at the heart of the mandate of UNESCO's cultural sector. In all countries, the COVID-19 pandemic has hit the culture sector hard, yet we lack adequate data and statistics to measure its real impacts. It is this challenge of lack of data in the field of culture that brings us together today. Without exhaustive and reliable data on the cultural sector to feed national and local statistics, it is not possible to guarantee that culture will be effectively integrated in the long term in discussion, strategic plans, and implemented policies at national and local level. The Culture 2030 indicators aim to help decision makers to build a solid and coherent discourse based on concrete data on culture and development. This is an innovative initiative aimed at establishing a methodology to highlight the role of culture in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The indicators were developed in close collaboration with the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, and this project was made possible, as I said before, thanks to the generous financial contribution of the European Commission, SIDA, and ICID. This launch workshop will present the methodology for the implementation of the Culture 2030 indicators. The data collected and analyzed will inform decisions, concrete measures, and policies with the aim of enabling more investment in culture as a sector of activity and further recognition of its cross-cutting role for all other sectors. Project results can feed into national and local reports reviewed at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on the Sustainable Development Goals in New York, through their voluntary national reports and voluntary local reviews. This will support the advocacy efforts aimed at making the role of culture in sustainable development more visible. We would like to thank all of the participants who are joining us today. We are counting on your collaboration and commitment to support and make the process of implementing UNESCO's Cultural 2030 indicators a great success.
A very good morning to you all. It is indeed my pleasure and honor to be among personalities who are at the center of dealing with culture, stakeholders and practitioners of the cultural and creative industries, statisticians, city fathers, and indeed city mothers. I hope the term exists, given that we are celebrating Women's Month. Happy Women's Month. Firstly, allow me to thank the UNESCO family for choosing Zimbabwe to be among the few countries considered to undertake this pilot study of implementing the UNESCO 2030 culture indicators. As a nation, we have a proud record of seeing through that which we would have committed to undertake. And as such, I wish to assure UNESCO Paris, the Swedish Development Agency, that Zimbabwe will be up to the task. The fact that we have also brought in our national statistical agents, ZimStat, to the table is testimony that government is keen to collect data on culture that is required to inform policy making in implementing Vision 2030 in line with SDGs. As a nation, Zimbabwe has been at the forefront of collecting data on culture-related activities. Culture Fund Zimbabwe Trust did a survey of Harare and Chitungwiza. Then government partnered UNESCO and Zimstat did a survey on Zimbabwe's culture for development indicators in 2017. The Swedish Development Agency has always been instrumental with funding in all these developments. Most importantly, when the UNESCO Culture 2030 Indicators publication was launched during the Forum of Culture Ministers in November 2019, I, Dr. Kathy Coventry, was among the 120 Ministers of Culture. It is important, ladies and gentlemen, to note that the National Development Strategy 1 is a blueprint that rides on culture. Thus, it is important to understand what culture is contributing towards attaining Vision 2030 and our nation's desire to become an upper middle income society. All this will be better understood by implementing the UNESCO 2030 Culture Indicators Survey in this city of kings and queens, the city of Bulawayo. To that end, it is my ministry's wish to thank the city of Bulawayo for trailblazing on matters of culture, as it is the only city in Zimbabwe that has an arts and culture desk in its housing and social services department. It was for this reason that when UNESCO expressed desire to conduct this survey, government requested the city of Bulawayo to consider piloting the project, and the city agreed. Indeed, we signed the threesome agreement that noted the city, UNESCO, and my Ministry of Sport, Recreation, Arts and Culture to this noble cause that this two-day workshop is kickstarting. Furthermore, it is critical to observe that as Zimbabwe, we were asked to select from the UNESCO expert facility a regional expert to chaperone the exercise, working with the threesome alluded to above. We chose Mr. Farai Mupfunya, who was not only at the helm of the Culture Fund Zimbabwe Trust, but is also a culture expert who is and still is working with other nationals within the UNESCO family on the implementation of UNESCO-related culture projects. It is my hope that we will learn from his vast experience, which I am informed will be well anchored, given that another expert from Italy, who has been spearheading UNESCO pilot projects, Ms. Valentine Montalto, will be an associate in implementing of the survey. I should also underscore and recognize the critical role that stakeholders from the arts and culture sector in their individual and collective will play for the success of this project. It is from your activities and information that this survey will derive from. As such, involving you in this two-day workshop is in itself a sign of deference by government, the city of Bulawayo, and UNESCO. As such, I wish to thank you all, include those others who will be snowballed and are not in this workshop, but will provide necessary information that will constitute data to the project. As I conclude, I would like to assure UNESCO of the unwavering commitment of the government to fully embrace and implement the UNESCO Families Conventions, thus fulfilling our obligations as a state party. It is with great awareness that I acknowledge the crucial role played by UNESCO in the past 2 days, particularly through the Ashbeck project. This project provided a platform for Zimbabwe to engage in an indaba at the Bulawayo Holiday Inn, where discussions centered on supporting the transition of Zimbabwe's culture and creative industry to the formal economy. Furthermore, UNESCO's support extends to the preservation of Zimbabwe's intangible cultural heritage. This two-year project involves the active participation of traditional leadership, women, youth, and people with disabilities across the nation. The funding for this project is graciously provided by UNESCO. These endeavors, along with their associated activities, serve as undeniable proof of Zimbabwe's steadfast commitment to UNESCO as a valued state party. Coming back to the subject at hand, the UNESCO 2030 Culture Indicators Survey in Zimbabwe and the city of BULAWAYO will indelibly stand as one on UNESCO's landmark projects in the quest to harvest the much-needed empirical data on matters of culture, not just in Zimbabwe, but also elsewhere in UNESCO's diverse and large family. Let us undertake this kickoff workshop with enthusiasm and learn from it as the city of Bulawayo, as creators, as Zimbabweans, and as members of the greater UNESCO family. We need to bear in mind that the outcome of these UNESCO 2030 culture indicators will have a bearing in shaping our cultural and creative economy, a critical player for us to realize the Sustainable Development Goals come 2030. With these remarks, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to have the singular honor of declaring the UNESCO 2030 Culture Indicators Survey Project in Zimbabwe and the city of Bulawayo official kickoff officially launched. I thank you, Siyabonga.